The FBI director arrested Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan for immigrant obstruction. Judge Hannah Dugan is accused of helping an immigrant avoid arrest after he appeared in her courtroom because ICE arrested him.
This is the second judge in 2 days to get arrested. So what did this one do?
FBI Director Kash Patel made claims on social media that the judge intentionally misdirected federal agents away from an immigrant they were trying to take into custody at her courthouse.
Okay, but how did she break the law, and what proof do they have to be able to arrest her?
Kash Patel said verbatim, "Our agents chased down the immigrants on foot and he's been in custody since. But the judge's obstruction increased danger to the public."
So no proof, just another potential story they made up to arrest a judge they don't like.
If the FBI says that she broke the law, then she broke the law. What reason would the FBI director have to lie?
In 3 years, that line of reasoning will turn us into a dictatorship. How will you justify it then?
If that's what it takes to take America back and make it great again, then that's what it takes. We have to arrest the judge.
You're all out of your mind!
Let's do that!
That goes right to the heart of the America First agenda. A federal grand jury just indicted that Wisconsin judge, Hannah Dugan, after she allegedly helped an illegal avoid ICE at her courthouse. Senator, again, promises made, promises kept. Tom Homan, the president, said, look, you interfere with the lawful work of ICE, and we're going to hold you accountable. And it looks like a grand jury, at least for now, it looks like this is serious for this judge.
Yeah, really serious. Well, it's a federal crime. She committed a crime, and I don't know about you, but I'm tired of these judges all across the country acting like they're above the law, acting like they are some sort of tin-pot dictators who can sit up there and say, oh, here's what we want to do. I'm going to run the country. I'm going to be president. They're supposed to be following the law, Laura. They're supposed to be adjudicating the law, and they're supposed to be following it as private citizens, and this judge was doing neither. So I'm glad she got indicted. I hope they prosecute this thing all the way through. It is outrageous for a sitting judge to be trying to obstruct justice in the United States of America. That's what this individual was doing. This is a clear message to these judges. Start doing your jobs and quit obstructing the fair implementation of justice in this country.
Yeah, just so.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So once again, we got to talk about another episode of Democrats finding out the hard way that they are, in fact, not above the law, even though they believe they're above the law. But they've spent the last 2 to 3 years telling us, while President Trump was being politically persecuted by the Biden administration and other woke Democrats, that nobody's above the law, right? It doesn't matter if you were the former president of the United States. It doesn't matter who you are. Nobody is above the law.
The idea that no person is above the law is a bedrock principle of American justice.
No man is above the law, no matter what the crime.
And I agree with you. No man is above the law, and no person is above the law. No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one's above the law. No one is above the law.
No man is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No man is above the law.
He has to be held accountable. He's not above the law.
No one's above the law. Either that nor any other title puts you above the rule of law.
And no one is truly above the law.
That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what it means to not have a king.
They're not above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
Everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as, equally.
That no one is above the law, which is foundational.
No one is above the law, even a former president.
Yeah, so again, I just want to stress that Democrats only believe this when it comes to President Trump. But when it comes to one of their own, like, for example, this woke Democrat judge that was arrested for helping illegal immigrants evade ICE in her own courtroom, all of a sudden that narrative changes.
He is being treated no better or worse than anyone else. This is not selective prosecution, that this is not somebody who's singled out, that he is being treated just like anyone else. That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what the Justice Department is really signaling and messaging here, is that everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as, equally in this country. This is really a great day for America. So there has been a violation here that we know for sure, and it is not the judge. Right, exactly. You don't do it. Even if you thought that there was a ground for doing this, the judgment call that you thought that this is the case to bring, it tells you everything. There is no adult in the room who would have said, are you kidding me? Why would you possibly do this? And the answer is because we want to send a signal to the judiciary. And that's what you shouldn't be doing.
This is where some of the hypocrisy to me comes out, Michael, because I've seen a lot of garment rending. Oh, he from liberals, let's just say it. How dare he arrest a judge? It is an intrusion on the sacrosanct nature of our courts. I agree that you have to think harder about it and be more careful about it as a prosecutor. But these are the same folks who were gravely intoning when Donald Trump got arrested. No man is above the law. Well, no judge is above the law either. And I know plenty of judges who, if a non-judge had done this, had shown someone a back door to help them get away from arresting agents, would bring the house down on them. So, look, I do think it's a fair point to say that's a precipitous line to cross if you're a judge or if you're a prosecutor charging the judge. But I think the prosecutors, based on this complaint, we always have to say it's a complaint, they have to prove it. But I think the charge here is warranted. I do think this judge committed a crime. I've seen some really interesting gymnastic style contortions to try to explain why it maybe isn't a crime. I mean, that'll be litigated at a trial, but I don't see it. Look, when you look at this whole complaint, I don't see any way to objectively look at this and say the judge did not have intent to block this arrest.
Yeah, so the propagandists over at MSDNC and the China News Network are going to be disappointed to find out that the Wisconsin judge, Hannah Dugan, has now been indicted on charges for helping the illegal immigrant evade ICE. So, again, everybody should remember this story. This woman got arrested for helping an illegal evade ICE in her courtroom. She didn't let ICE into the courtroom and then help the illegal escape, right, through a side door or something like that, while ICE was there to arrest the illegal. So now she has been indicted. And again, the evidence against her was like basically open and shut. She's definitely guilty in my opinion. And yeah, this is why I'm not really surprised by the indictment. But let's go ahead and play the video because hopefully we see a lot more of this, right? Democrats facing accountability, okay? They opened up Pandora's box, right, when it comes to this, and now they don't know how to handle it. So let's get into it.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. We do have some breaking news right now to report. Live picture there out of Milwaukee, a foggy Tuesday afternoon there. We're learning. I want to put this tweet up from our colleague there at Fox 6, Jason Calvi. And he has a screenshot there, a photo of the order itself, the grand jury indicting a suspended Milwaukee County judge, Hannah Dugan, on charges she helped a defendant escape. Federal immigration enforcement. This was a story we brought you about 2 weeks ago, and now there's a new development, a grand jury indicting the judge. Remember, the state Supreme Court there in Wisconsin suspending Dugan from her roles, from her duties as a Superior Court judge there. In the meantime, you see the New York Post headline, but in the meantime, the Associated Press has it as follows, that this federal grand jury, a federal grand jury, indicting a Wisconsin judge there, Hannah Dugan, accused of helping a man evade immigration authorities, allowing the case against her to continue. So you'll remember the arrest of Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan escalated a clash between President Trump, his administration, and local authorities over the president's sweeping immigration crackdown. Democrats have accused the Trump administration of trying to make a national example of Dugan to chill judicial opposition to the crackdown. Now, prosecutors charged her in April via complaint with concealing an individual to prevent arrest and obstruction. In the federal criminal justice system, prosecutors can initiate charges against a defendant directly by filing a complaint or present evidence to a grand jury and let that body decide whether to issue charges. That is what happened here. Now, a grand jury still reviews charges brought by complaint to determine whether enough probable cause exists to continue the case as a check on prosecutors' power. If the grand jury determines there is probable cause, it issues a written statement of the charges known as an indictment, and that is what has happened. An indictment has been handed down by this federal grand jury. Now, she faces up to 6 years in prison if she's convicted on both counts. Her team of defense attorneys responded to the indictment with a one-sentence statement saying she maintains her innocence and looks forward to being vindicated in court.
Right. Except, again, even CNN's analysts, okay, are coming out and saying, on paper, right, based off the details that we have, this looks like a crime, right? Again, this is open and shut in regards to this obstruction case against this judge.
Let's strip the politics out of it. This is a crime. If they can prove what happened here, it is a crime. This judge, let's strip the Trump of it all out. Let's strip the immigration of it all out. Let's say Law enforcement shows up at a building with an arrest warrant. They're looking for person A. Person B then says, hey, there's a secret escape door out back. I'm going to show you the way, and then ushers that person out the back door. That is textbook obstruction. That said, I think there's a fair debate to be had that I guess you two will be having in a moment about whether prosecutors should have brought this case. And let me tell you, I've been both state and federal side. If I was at DOJ and someone brought me this case on these facts, I would say, I get it. I get that robotically this is a crime, but I don't know that this is the right move here. Can't we just call up the state courthouse, see if there's some way we can work this out with the judiciary? How are we going to make arrests? I did this. Where are we going to make arrests? What are the protocols we're going to agree on? Jumping right, not everything that's a crime must be indicted or charged by complaint. And so I think this is a crime on paper, but there's a very fair debate about whether it should have been charged.
Well, Democrats signed up for this, right? This is what they signed up for when they told us for the last 2 to 3 years that nobody's above the law, right? Nobody is above the law. So it doesn't matter if you think that, oh, well, this is just a petty thing. She should get a slap on the wrist. There's other ways to work this out. No. She has to face accountability, right? She has to face accountability because nobody is above the law, okay? This, what she did is a crime for a reason, and she has to pay the consequences. It is what it is.
And there you see that was the photo put out by FBI Director Kash Patel of Judge Dugan walking away in handcuffs to be detained. Now, prosecutors say she escorted Eduardo Flores Ruiz and his lawyer out of her courtroom through a back jury door on April 18th after learning that agents from ICE were in the courthouse seeking his arrest. According to court documents, Flores Ruiz illegally re-entered the U.S. after being deported in 2013. Online state court records show he was charged with 3 counts of misdemeanor domestic abuse in Milwaukee County back in March. He was in Dugan's courtroom that morning of April the 18th for a hearing along with his lawyer, and she is accused of helping him evade arrest by federal ICE agents there. So that is the charge at hand. Court documents suggest she was alerted to the agent's presence by her clerk, who was informed by an attorney that the agents appeared to be in the hallway. An affidavit says she was visibly angry over the agent's arrival. She called the situation, quote, absurd, before leaving the bench and retreating to her chambers. She and another judge later approached members of the arrest team in the courthouse with what witnesses described as a, quote, confrontational, angry demeanor. Now, after this back and forth with the agents over the warrant for Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan demanded they speak with the chief judge and led them away from the courtroom. That's according to the affidavit. So in the meantime, this is breaking right now. This is from a federal grand jury indicting this judge there in Milwaukee. Remember, we brought you the news. Wisconsin State Supreme Court did strip Judge Dugan of her role while this is all going on. They suspended her for this, and now she's been indicted by a federal grand jury for her alleged role in all of this. So wanted to get that in there to you. That's a story we're going to stay on top of. Back out live to Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Letitia James, you're next. You're next. Okay? Yes, we are going to make examples out of people. Yes, we are going to arrest anybody who gets in the way of law enforcement, federal law enforcement doing their job, arresting these illegal immigrants, and these Democrats will be held accountable. They're going to find out the hard way that they should not have politically persecuted President Trump. They should not have done it. They should not have opened up Pandora's box. They should not have opened up this can of worms, okay? Should not have done it. So, since Democrats set the precedent, now they have to face the consequences, okay? And I don't want to hear no boo-hoo, why didn't cry? He's arresting judges, right? The next thing, when Letitia James faces the same fate, right? They'll say, oh, he's arresting attorney generals. Right? He's arresting black women. This is what they're going to say. This is what they're going to say. I can't wait for the liberal tears. Can't wait. I don't understand how anybody right now that is a Trump supporter is not thoroughly satisfied with what we're seeing. This is a lot better than I thought, to be honest with you, because, you know, a lot of these Republicans, they talk tough, they say a bunch of stuff, but they're not really about that life, okay? But, you know, in this situation, times have changed. We are about that life, right? We are, okay? And these Democrats are finding out the hard way, right? That is what's happening here. So again, we're gonna see what happens during the trial, right? I personally think that this judge is definitely guilty, and I think that she will be found guilty, but we will see. Regardless, yes, this is a message to any judge that wants to obstruct ICE from doing their job, that wants to harbor illegal immigrants, right? We have another judge out in New Mexico that was harboring illegals, letting illegals live with his family, okay? I mean, who knows? Maybe the illegals were, clapping cheeks, right? He had a daughter that apparently, had a special relationship with the illegals. I don't know what was going on. I think some freaky deaky stuff was going on in that case. I'm just saying, I guarantee you there's a lot more of this stuff. There's a lot more of it, okay? So arrests like this are important, right? Setting these types of examples, sending a message that you're not going to get away with these crimes, okay, is very important for having law and order in this country, right? This is law and order. That's exactly what this is. So no, we're not going to let it slide because the liberal media thinks that this is a petty crime, right? No, absolutely not. Democrats are being held accountable, okay? And you love to see it. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.